Is Sakamoto Day Christian? Let's find out.
Sakamoto Days isn't the most incredible anime in the world. It doesn't have the most amazing animation or absolutely stunning storytelling, yet it's popular and it's got like 200,000 people watching it. And I think I know why. It captures that desire that we all have, something that God has provided that because of his common grace to all men is accessible to all of us. I feel God really cares about the institution of the family, which is what I see reflected in Sakamoto Days. There's a reason why Jesus is
I kind of agree. This anime, I don't know what it is. I'm keeping up with it on Netflix. Something about it that I can't quite pinpoint like has me bringing back. I think it's lighthearted and funny, which depending on your mood, that's something that you may want once in a while. You don't want like a super complex story. Reminds me a little bit of Ranma One Half, and surprisingly, my wife, who's not like a anime fan, she actually watches when I'm watching it. So there's definitely something to this anime for sure.
really harsh towards
The question is it Jesus? Let's see.
the Pharisees. When they ask him about divorce, he says in Matthew 19 that the Israelites' hearts were hardened, and that's why Moses permitted divorce. Marriage, the union between one man and one woman, that display of love, that sense of unity between husband and wife, to become one flesh, as described in Genesis, is what creates a safe household for a child to be brought up in, hence why God cares about the family. It's that unity which brings development and growth between the individuals involved in this covenant, which nurtures this sense of sacrificial, this agape love for which God desires for us to develop. As I watch Sakamoto Days, this is why I do like it, even though it's not the most amazing anime ever, because I see in it the sense that all of us have because God has designed us to be this way. When I see Sakamoto in the first episode, it's only for a couple of frames, but I see a man who is incredibly broken. When God made humans in the beginning, he designed us so that we would engage in relationship with him. The heart desires something greater than oneself. It desires something or someone to fulfill it because we are designed to be in relationship with the living God, and that's what we see with Sakamoto. He could be the best hitman in all of Japan. He could pride himself on his skills, that he's the best of the best, that he's making money, yet at the end of the day, he clearly desires and longs for more. So when he sees this smile, I get it. It's a comedy anime and it has to be exaggerated, but I would like to think that every single one of us guys, and I know you lot who subscribe to this channel get that same feeling, that you'd react the same way when we see this woman smile. It's as if God has designed us to have this impulse as men to recognize things which are in themselves good, and instilled in us is a sense to recognize the things we need to protect. Of course, I would absolutely react the same way as Sakamoto. Then he just leaves his old life, settles down with his family, and sets up shop. It's this sort of mindset to live a simple life, which the world probably doesn't get. We are surrounded by this culture of the worship of GDP, the worship of economic growth, the worship of hustling, but we see consistently throughout the New Testament this notion of keeping your head down, to make it your ambition to lead a quiet life, minding your own business and working with your hands. Paul continues that the reason for this is so that our daily life may win the respect.
Yeah, I think animes like this that are successful, they do oftentimes center around some type of family dynamic for sure. Lighthearted animes like Tenchi Muyo, for example. I mentioned Ranma One Half is another. You have like this whimsical, lighthearted kind of relationship that's happening amongst family and friends, right? And I think today more than ever, people are craving that because the pendulum kind of swung one way, where the focus was heavily on me as an individual, and people realized that they ended up being more lonely than ever before. And it's almost now coming back where people are realizing, man, like, yeah, life is not that fun when you're doing it by yourself, right?
Of outsiders. Peter continues in this encouragement that we live such good lives among the pagans that though they may accuse us of doing wrong, they may see our good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. To have this image so perfectly captured in the character of Sakamoto, a guy who now solely focuses on the greater good of loving his wife, providing for his family, and protecting his daughter, we also see in this a sense of imperfect repentance. It's still necessary for repentance to involve a turning back to God, but we see the capacity for man to still be able to turn away from sin because of the institution of the family. This is what I mean by the common grace which is accessible to all, because people can still be unsaved, but because of God's common grace and his provision of a structure like the family, Sakamoto is still able to produce good works. It's really cute to see the sequence where he goes and helps people using his skills rather than unaliving them. He helps this guy trim the branches from his tree. He helps this baby eat food she doesn't like. He helps these kids with a problem with their ball. Like, there's this level of humility that he possesses, that he's got a heart to serve. We see that Sakamoto is still a very skilled assassin. He is able to defend himself against Shin, and later on in the episode takes on all of these folks in order to save his old friend. Yet using his skills, he no longer just finishes the job by unaliving them, but simply incapacitates them enough that they're no longer a threat. And I have to
Yeah, you have to suspend disbelief quite a bit, right? You have this big dude like moving around like he's like the Flash, right? I think that that's also, now that I think about it, one of the reasons why um, you come back to this anime is to just see what other ridiculousness like he's gonna pull off. Like there was that one episode where he literally got exploded to a bomb by a bomb, and he lost like all the weight, and then I kid you not, probably like 5 minutes later, he like ate back the weight that he had, and he was fat again. Um, yeah, I do find that interesting about the anime. He brings up an interesting point, and this is something that I go back and forth on with people, because there is a section in the Bible that says that there aren't any good men. There isn't any good man, not even one, right? And a lot of that is in comparison to God, right? If you compare the ultimate good to us, obviously you're not going to measure up. And that's how I understand that. It doesn't mean that you as an individual cannot do good deeds, or like he is saying here, be a good person, and to an extent a moral person, because the Bible does tell us that the law has been written in our hearts, right? This is why there are certain things that we just inherently understand as evil. Murdering a child, right? In most circumstances that you're placed in, that's gonna looked at as wrong, because a child is innocent, they cannot protect themselves, and we instinctively want to do that. Well, the question is, where does that come from? It comes from God.
Stress this, that an individual can produce these good works as a result of common grace. Sakamoto, after learning to care about someone, namely this woman, after he's gotten a kid, he's learned what it means to care for someone, that he starts putting away his old self, like in a similar manner that the Christian ought to be continuing to put to death the old self and put on a new self. We see this in the following episode, where on a Christmas date, Sakamoto realizes that the career path he's chosen is something that he has to rethink for the sake of this woman that he really likes. He realizes and learns from her that because he cares for this person, that must mean that other people also have people caring for them. It's only when he himself develops a relationship that he is able to empathize and understand the impact that the loss of life has on the people who he's been hired to unalive. That's something that we take for granted as Christians, and for us living in the West, that we have had this culture of wanting to preserve life. It's why we have to be so adamant against the growing culture of death, which has come as a result of the increase in the rate of abortion and euthanasia in the West. The world has not always promoted this culture of life where people respect the dignity and sanctity of the human person. We see this in the ancient world with the prominence of practices such as human sacrifice. However, God grants his common grace upon us through this promotion of a culture of life, and this can be learned by the non-Christian when they find family. Now, this effect is not limited to Sakamoto, because we see when Shin enters the picture, he sees the fulfillment of having a family that Sakamoto now has. That sense of contentment and understanding of the greater goal that is now bestowed upon him. Shin can see it, which is why...
All right. So is Sakamoto Days a Christian anime? Obviously not. Does it have Christian themes? Yes, of course. Does it showcase different aspects of a life that God would call us to live? Yes, it does. And we've gone through that as this video has gone on. I think that part of the charm of this anime is that it showcases a simple life, right? Like the same way that some people are attracted to all of these shows where they're showing like the fancy houses and, you know, the lifestyle of the rich and the famous, if you will. I think people have grown bored of that. I think people see that, and they've seen not only the debauchery but where it can land. And some people are curious and they want to see a simpler lifestyle and potentially understand, like, is this a lifestyle that would allow me to be happy and live a fulfilled life? This is a pretty good video. I am familiar with Christian Anime Podcast, his work. He's a cool guy. Let me know what you think in the comments before. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I don't know why I said before. Let me know what you think in the comments. Third try. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you watching Sakamoto Days? Do you like this anime? Do you find it boring? Let me know in the comments. And as always, just want to remind you that we must persevere. Peace.